welcome back. Welcome to our afternoon Eastern Time session from 1:30 to 3 o'clock in Stream 1. And we're going to start off with two talks in this session, and I'm excited about both of them. The first one is on Escapeling, which is a gamified AI-supported chatbot for collaborative language practice. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about that. And we have Christian Johnson with us from Germany, and he has two colleagues with him as well, Emma and Maxim, who are going to be part of this presentation also. So we're looking forward to it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Christian. So go ahead and share your screen and take it away.
All right, great. Thanks, David. If there's any problem with the audio, just feel free to let me know.
Okay.
Just give me a sec.
Yep. Yeah, we can hear you. Took a second. We can hear you. I can see your slides. I think everything looks in order.
All right, great. Yeah, so of course, thanks everyone for dropping by for this short talk. As David already said, we're going to talk briefly about a kind of collaborative, gamified mobile messaging learning environment for language learning. Just a little overview of what we're going to go through. First, I'll give you kind of the broad picture, and then Emma's going to focus in specifically on some of the learning scenarios that the environment offers. Maxime will take a deep dive on the gamified aspects of this application before really kind of seeing the application in action with a quick demo before talking about how we evaluated this application in brief. Then we'll look ahead as the project is in fact continuing before having time for any questions you might want to field. Yeah, so what's the main idea here? Just to kind of pitch it to you, as you probably garnered from the title, we have a mobile messaging Telegram specifically situated language learning application with a kind of science fictional theme titled Escapeling. The idea is to allow users to, within this messaging infrastructure, collaborate on language practice tasks, which are also story contextualized. Here's a screenshot just to give you a taste of what this looks like, but of course you'll get a better sense in the demonstrational video later. What are the main goals of this application? Well, first is, as we can probably sympathize with in this remote setting, to improve language learning outcomes by gamifying and contextualizing tasks in a collaborative setting, which is nevertheless remote. Our target user is approximately intermediate level language learners, maybe high school, middle school age, hence this specific theme we've chosen. And this target group aligns with the test groups from about which you'll hear more later during the evaluation section of this presentation. This would be another shot showing you how this type of interaction will look in practice. Some underlying assumptions before closing off this section. One of the main ideas here is, of course, that these narrative contextualized tasks will improve the learning outcome by enhancing the user engagement, and specifically that these are very task-focused language learning tasks, which are kind of nested within the storyline that the users are trying to progress through. And importantly, that this is a collaborative group setting, right? We are maybe situating this application in a different space than a lot of individual learning scenarios by focusing specifically on collaborative group learning around these tasks. And the assumption here is that this would encourage potentially inter-user support as part of an effective complex learning model. Just to briefly mention the evaluation before continuing, we did maybe some brief concept validation with two groups of high school EFL students of approximately the level that we mentioned as our target group. But Maxime will definitely give us a closer look at this later in the presentation. Yeah, so that's Escapeling in a nutshell. I'll hand it over to Emma to give us a deeper look at the actual learning scenarios.
Thank you, Christian. Yeah, so as we have heard so far, the application has a sci-fi theme and users progress through a story. but as they progress along their escape, they have to complete some tasks, and if they are successful, then they will eventually manage to escape. So in the next slide, we have an overview of these language practice tasks. We have 3 of them at the moment, and they are a sentence correction task, a vocabulary guessing task, and a discussion task. So in the following slide, I will just guide you through an overview of what happens within each of these. So in the sentence correction task, we have a focus on grammar, and one user is randomly selected to review the correctness of one sentence. If the sentence is incorrect, they also must provide a correct alternative. The screenshot on the right is supposed to give you an idea of how this flows within the application, but for all of these examples, we will also get a better look during the demo later on. So the given sentence can be discussed as a group, but eventually one user is responsible for providing an answer, and every user gets their turn. And this is repeated 4 times until the task is completed. Okay, then this is one more screenshot that shows you the sentence was recognized as incorrect, and then the user had to provide the correct alternative here. Then in the vocabulary guessing task, this is somehow similar to the game of taboo. So you're familiar with it. One person knows a word and they have to explain it to the others without using the word itself, but by explaining its meaning. So again, each user in turn receives a word and they have to allow other people to guess it by providing some hints. There is a time limit to do so, and there is also an option to choose a different word if the word that the participant received was not appropriate to them or if they didn't know it. And this, again, is repeated 4 times for every user. So to the right, we see that Christian was trying to make us guess the word herbs, and he gave us some hints to do so. Then in the discussion task, the focus is more on writing, so language production practice. And it is a guided group discussion because participants first receive one text that is meant to introduce the topic of the discussion, and then 3 follow-up questions that are meant to guide the discussion. So to the right, we can see that people have received a text about colors and moods associations. And at the end, this task can be either passed or failed, and that has an impact on storytelling. In the next slide, we can see that after receiving this text, people received a question and they started discussing the topic at hand. So there are 3 questions and 3 minutes to discuss each of these questions, and this is repeated until the end of the task is reached. At the end of the discussion, there is then a poll that is meant to evaluate the success of the task, and we might get back to this in the Outlook section, but it was kind of hard for us to evaluate a discussion automatically, because how can you decide whether discussion was successful or not? And we came up with a couple of metrics that are very tentative for now, and we are working on improving this. But eventually the outcome is communicated. So we have one final slide about this that gives you an overview of how the discussion task flows. So people receive a text, they receive a question, they have 3 minutes to discuss it, and this is repeated 2 more times. And when the discussion is over, there is a moment for evaluation and then participants find out whether they passed or failed this task. And this has a consequence for storytelling, because as we said, the ultimate goal is to escape an alien spaceship. So that is it for a brief overview of the tasks. Again, we will see this in action during the demo, and I will pass it on to Maxime, who will tell us about the gamified components of our application.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. In this part, we'll briefly talk about gamification in escaping. First, I will quickly tell you why we gamified escaping and also what are the theoretical considerations behind it. And Yeah, so basically there's quite a lot of research on gamification in learning, and most papers published have found at least some aspects of learning that get improved or that get affected upon by gamified elements. So this is either that people interact more with the app, or that people's interaction is more productive in the sense they get better results out of that. Or it can also be that they see some more deep internal meaning behind this interaction, or at least some other components, like if it's not intrinsic, then it is extrinsic motivation. But many papers, like the vast majority of them, see at least some improvements because of gamification. So we decided it was quite a safe shot to gamify escape playing. And well, it's also fun to play gamified games, gamified apps, whatever. In escape playing, the main thing we did to gamify it was to introduce achievements. We have two main achievement paths here. These are streaks and badges, and all achievements users earn throughout their games get displayed publicly after each completed game iteration. This was done to kind of give an extra nudge to the most competitive users to activate their social comparison mechanisms to force them to play even better and be more motivated and so on. And another thing was that we kind of needed to find the right balance between not too many and not too few achievements, because we wanted to kind of cultivate a habit of playing escape playing with our achievements. But it has also been shown that too many achievements kind of destroy themselves and they don't work at all. So we kind of balanced that out by having just these streaks and badges. So let's get to streaks now. Well, a streak is something you would normally see in every app that has a streak. So yeah, you get it every second, third, 100th, and so on day you play the application. And the main goal behind it is to avoid regular interaction with your app. So you come back and you come back and you get new streaks. And then to badges. Inside our app, if you complete the game successfully, you can get numbers, digits, and for all these digits, you can get the code cracking badges. And they're supposed to reward your long-term interaction. So if you have lost all your streaks and you haven't been online for a while, you still kind of remain invested with your code cracking badges. And maybe this kind of stimulates you to come back. And for now, these digits are basically the only thing you can unlock inside escape playing. So they serve as a placeholder for some more sophisticated form of unlockable content for now. And now we will show you a demo for you to get a better taste of what escape playing looks like.
Okay, coming right up.
After beginning a private chat with the bot, the user is presented with textual storytelling content to enhance the sense of immersion and contextualize upcoming tasks.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Harriet. I'm currently on Earth, but I've been able to hack into the alien ship. I'm going to try and help you escape. Here's what I know. A few decades ago, an alien ship discovered our planet, and now they want to live here. There's only one problem. We're already living here. It looks like their plan is to interrogate you and the others so they can figure out a way to remove all humans from Earth. We need to get you out of there, but first, I need to be sure the signal is coming from you and not the aliens. I can send you the escape codes, but first, you'll have to complete some tasks only humans can solve to verify your identity. You are not alone. There are other humans with you on the spaceship. You will need to work together to escape. And we've got an inside man. Well, alien. His name is Elias. He's a friend. You can trust him. He will explain everything. Okay, are you ready?
After registering, users can then create or join groups by sharing unique code words. Once users have joined a private game room, they are shown further storytelling content before voting to begin the escape challenge. Users can choose from one of 3 tasks. In the sentence correction task, users iteratively correct erroneous sentences to test their grammatical knowledge. One user is nominated to first identify if a sentence contains an error, and, if so, modify that sentence by selecting components using the Telegram contextual keyboard. During the task, the application tracks sentence-specific grammatical subcategory data for each user in order to later adapt difficulty based on challenging tasks. After one successful iteration, users collect one piece of a code word. After 4 successful iterations, all pieces have been collected, and the group can progress to the next task, first viewing their recent achievements, and then entering the code word to proceed. At this point, the collected performance data are used to suggest options for manually adjusting the difficulty. Based on this user's performance, she is given the option to focus on ing sentences. In the vocabulary guessing task analogous to the board game Taboo, users describe and guess vocabulary items provided through their private contextual keyboards. Again, after several iterations, users can review their most recent achievements. In the final discussion task, users are presented a text to guide discussion, as well as question prompts. As the discussion continues, the application tracks time and word count milestones in order to present new question prompts and fuel the discussion further. At the end of the task, users are polled on their perceived discussion difficulty and quality, which are used to evaluate the task in combination with additional metadata, such as word count. Finally, outside of the individual escape game rooms, individual users can review their current achievements in private conversation with the bot.
Yeah, so that's what escape lane looks like now. And we can move on to the next session where we'll briefly talk about how we evaluated escape lane and kind of verified our concept. We have completed 2 testing iterations after we had 2 and 3 tasks available. The first one was rather short. It was only a single session of 60 minutes. The first one we tried to make bigger to ensure that our results are more or less accurate. This was 30-minute sessions daily over a span of 2 weeks. For our testing, we have recruited 12 Russian teenagers. I mean, overall, so in 2 testing phases. And yeah, they were all learning English at school and had levels somewhere between B1 and B2. This is what the testing looked like. First, we sent out some info sheets with very basic idea of escape lane, what it is and what you need to play it. This was something like you need Telegram installed, you need internet access and so on. Then right before the test, we distributed a background questionnaire with questions like, what's your age? How long have you been learning English? What experience with other learning apps do you have? And so on. Then there was the actual game session where the testers were provided instructions like create a group or join a group, play the discussion game, or something along these lines. And finally, there was the finishing post questionnaire that had questions about the tester's satisfaction, their readiness to recommend the application further, and also some questions about general task understanding, like what can you learn from the discussion task? Now let's see the results. So as you see, almost every tester rated escape lane to be at least 7 out of 10. So they were all quite satisfied, and everyone was also ready to recommend escape lane further. This is not a very big sample, and we do acknowledge that, but however, we believe that over a bigger sample with such results, we will still stay somewhere in the positive half of the spectrum. However, testing is still in progress, and there will hopefully be some further testing iterations, and we're glad to hear your opinion about what can be improved in our testing process. And now I will pass the word back to Emma so that we can continue with the Outlook section.
Thank you, Maxim. So yeah, the work on the project is continuing. So this is a student-led project, and a new group of students has taken up the work that was done in the past year, and work on this project is set to continue still until March 2022. So some features are currently under construction. We are testing better testing techniques in terms of actual debugging and development testing techniques. We are implementing one new learning scenario, one new task, which will be a listening task, differently to what we've had so far. We are working on improving storytelling, so what guides the participants throughout their escape of the spaceship. And we are implementing some more elaborate NLP techniques to evaluate the language production of the users during the discussion task. And we are also adding more visualizations throughout the application. We are also considering starting a better cooperation with educators and people who would actually maybe like to make use of this application in their class. And in this sense, we welcome any suggestions. So now we have 5 minutes for a question. We can leave this slide up, I guess, with our contacts. And at this link, you can find some documentation of our project and more details on everything we've discussed so far. So thank you very much for your attention. And I guess we can get to some questions.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. The first one I think was a little bit earlier on, so I've learned a little bit more as the presentation continued. But in terms of the grammar, how robust is the grammar checker for what's acceptable?
So that was the sentence correction task, and
I think so, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think that's what the question is referring to, yes.
Yeah, so we actually have a corpus basically, and it's already hard coded, so we are not fully evaluating what they say, but they have multiple choice keyboards to choose from to identify the mistake in the sentence, and then they can type freely a suggestion to correct the sentence, but it is always only one word that would make it correct, and we already have it in our data set. Now, how robust is this data set? We have checked it over and over again, but we also acknowledge that there are some cases where it might be hard to actually take into consideration all of the possible ways that a single sentence could be corrected. And so we are working on implementing more robust feedback to the users in case they are not satisfied with how their answer was evaluated. And yeah, then
Yes,
I see that there is another.
Yeah, there's a second one. Yeah, go ahead. You can see the second one as well on the Q&A. So yes.
Yeah, by the way, thank you to Trevor for both of these questions. Now, I believe this, either Christian or Maxime could actually be able to address it. So you guys can feel free. What language level does this work well for or poorly with in terms of the users who interact with it?
I'll jump in first just to give my 2 cents. Maxime, feel free. Work well or poorly with, I think it's probably kind of like difficult to define like working well or poorly. If we could maybe think of like suitability or like just correlating our assumptions about the application's suitability for the target group, I would say like keeping in mind that we aim for like intermediate level learners. So like B2, IELTS, I think that would be probably, I don't know exactly that scale, but CEFR B2. If we were going a little lower on the scale, there might be some challenges as far as the narrative texts are concerned, or the actual like tasks which emphasize a lot of reading comprehension skills, which might be challenging to the users. At higher levels, it is like admittedly the case that, for example, the tasks are structured in such a way, specifically the vocabulary guessing task, that might be like overly simplistic. So, I mean, really like in terms of just the assumptions we make about the user's like language comprehension skills, as well as the data themselves, which are used to construct the task. Emma already mentioned the corpus from which are gathered the sentence correction data, which is a corpus for like intermediate level learners. On these different levels, there would be challenges, for example, to engagement and maybe just comprehension outside of that scope that we targeted.
Yeah, so we assume a basic knowledge of English also because the application starts off with English prompts. And there is some story that users are exposed to right from the start, but then there are levels and there is an adaptive component to our application that tries to target possible differences in users' proficiencies. But I guess I would, on a CFR scale, I would estimate A2 to B2 probably. C1 might still benefit from using this, but yeah, then that's what it would be.
Yeah, that's a good point, Emma. The whole like kind of concept of the adaptable difficulty is meant to like compensate perhaps at lower levels for some of the challenges of comprehensibility, at least in coordinating the tasks themselves. So that would have a mitigating effect, but nevertheless, yeah, it would be challenging.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, great. And Trevor says he's an ESL professor and is really interested in your idea. And he's also working on some gamification tasks. So that ends up getting us right to the time. So thanks so much for a really interesting presentation. And it's great to talk with all of you. And we'll move on to the next one. So thanks once again. And I think Yadan's going to play the intro video for our next talk, and then I'll introduce the next speakers. All right, so we have a group of 4 people presenting the next one. We have Klaus Janke, Oksana Arnold, Ronnie Franke, and Hans-Holger Wacke, from all of whom are from Germany. And the talk is Dynamic Planning and Digital Storyboarding for Professional Training of Accident Prevention with Time Travel Games. So we have quite a group of games here. We have the escape room game, and then we have the escape link game, and then some time travel games, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about. So please feel free to go ahead and turn your microphone and video camera on, and I'll turn it over to you to share your screens. And I'm looking forward to hearing all about this.
So, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure about that. Let's try again.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, that's great, David. Thanks.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't see you. I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
So let's check starting the video. Oh, the host has stopped my video.
Oh, not on purpose, but I just asked you to start, so you and I can both change that. So
it's okay.
All right, you are back. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, and somewhere interesting. You are somewhere interesting. Okay. All right.
Good afternoon,
okay,
everyone in 2 Americas, right? And good evening, everyone in Europe. And
yes.
Hello, everyone, everybody else around the world. Let me have a look for my PowerPoint presentation. I am the speaker-elect of our team here. We have 4 authors: Oksana Arnold, Ronnie Franke, Hans-Holger Wacke, I'm Klaus-Peter Jantke, and we speak about dynamic planning and digital storyboarding. That's very closely related for professional training of accident prevention with time travel games. Here you see the 4 of us. Oksana Arnold prefers to be called Oki. You see her on the left. Ron is on the right. Hans-Holger is on the bottom. And friends call me, Klaus-Peter Jantke call me Janosch. So you see me in the background on top. There you see our enterprises. Oki comes from the University of Applied Sciences in Erfurt. Ronnie from Fraunhofer IFF in Magdeburg. Hans-Holger is our training boss. He is training people to avoid accidents in the industries. And I am from Adicom Software in Weimar. The emphasis of our presentation is on accident prevention with time travel games. There is this dynamic planning and storyboarding behind, and we will talk about that. But our innovation comprises 2 aspects. First, the concept of time travel prevention games. That's really original. And second, that we do that really in a virtual world. Perhaps we are the only team worldwide having these innovations conceptually implemented and in application. But notice, we are here at the Learning Ideas Conference to give up this position, to share our knowledge and our experience. The best of an innovation is, in our opinion, when it becomes folklore for the benefit of humans all over the world. So we want to share what we are presenting. Accident prevention with time travel games is what Ronnie will introduce here in 1 video, and 2 more videos are to come. So Ronnie, please go ahead, show them the world in which we are training people, really.
Okay.
So now we need to switch, right? And to see how a video comes from Ronnie.
Yeah. So is it there?
Ah, Ronnie. I see some. Oh, wow. Yes, this is us.
What? It's just a video? Yeah.
Yes, it is. It looks like the video. Say.
Okay, then let's start the tour. Yeah, this is our virtual learning factory. This is a 3D environment, a game, in that we can move around, interact with objects, and yeah, of course, learn something. For example, here we have an area with general content of about safety at work. For example, handling missions, fire protection, traffic routes, escape ways, or here design of workplaces. Some special topics are also included. For example, here's a section about handling of inert gases. So here we can learn something about the best solution in dangerous situations in typical working processes. And here is a workplace on the subject of welding and compressed gas cylinders. And here we have an area about transportation, handling with forklifts, lift trucks, and so on. And finally, on the right side, this area is the focus of our presentation. This is a workplace for decanting flammable liquids. Okay, the tour is over. So now we switch back to Janusz.
Thanks, Ronnie. I try to show my screen again. I hope it's here. No, where it is. Come on. Oh, that's the end of my presentation. How nice. I would like to be somewhere here. Good. So what do we really do? The BGRCI is an institution responsible for training people in the industry. So we really deal with the true industry and with real accident prevention. The BGRCI is responsible for 34,000 enterprises in Germany. There are about 1.6 million people insured. So we take care of their health and their lives, so to say. And in the prevention center in Berlin, where Hans-Holger Wache has everything under control, we have about 30,000 trainees annually, except, unfortunately, the times of a pandemic. So we have a wonderful reach if you look at these figures. But to be honest, when the pandemic is over, we will start again. Due to the pandemic, we had a cut down for more than 1 year. And consequently, we do not have a systematic evaluation at the moment. This is still pending. So in this presentation you get here, we confine ourselves to the discussion of our ideas, of the concepts with a certain precision, and of technologies. And evaluation seems worth a separate presentation, definitely. Real training in a virtual world means that a trainee logs into the world you just saw in Ronnie's video. The trainee is getting assigned a task, and then the trainee lives, so to speak, in that virtual world. And in that virtual world, it's just you. It's no avatar. There is no other vehicle. As Richard Bartle, one of the fathers in spirit of Dungeons and Dragons, put it, it's just you there, and the avatar is just the clothing you wear. You live in the world, you act in the world, and you experience what really happens. And you might experience a self-induced accident. You may also experience the mastery of the whole technology. And what that means in a real training session will be presented to you in a second by Ronnie in the next part of our video. Here it comes. And as in real life, it takes some seconds.
So, yeah, also welcome back to the learning factory. We enter the factory and now we have a specific task. And in this case, a flammable liquid must be decanted from the container on the right side into such a barrel on the left side. And of course, all safety instructions must be observed during this working process. And therefore, at first, we need the right protection equipment. So, jacket, helmet, glasses, gloves, and the right shoes. And then we must clean up the working environment, and we must detect objects that can be dangerous for the working process. For example, smartphone and radio because of their batteries. Then we activate the ventilation. And then the container with the flammable liquid must be placed in the right zone, in the middle of our working environment. Of course, with the right transportation equipment. And then we need a barrel. And now, very important, we need some objects for grounding to avoid electrostatic charges. This one and this one. Then we can open the barrel and the container. So now we have a very dangerous situation because of the flammable liquid. The gas is escaping the barrel and the container. And so it's very important now to have the right protection equipment, the right objects in the right place, in the right order. So let's go on. Next, we need such a pump. Then a counter, a pump nozzle. And then we connect the power cable, power on, pump on.
Wow, Ronnie, what did you do?
Yeah, I don't know, but something
went
something wrong. So, back to Janusz.
Yeah, thank you. Let's find my presentation. Here it is. As before. Sure, we had the situation. Some undesired event. In that case, an explosion. There are variety undesired events. And our key idea is the key idea we advocate here, we are going to discuss in some detail is virtual time traveling. So you see on the right half of the screen a screenshot where to the human trainee there is an opportunity offered to travel back in time and to try it once again. What a dream if we could do that in real life. Originally, the concept of time travel prevention games has been introduced for purposes of crime prevention. We had half a decade ago cooperation, my team and me, with an agency named Polizeiliche Kriminalprävention der Länder und des Bundes. That means police crime prevention of the federal states and the Federation of Germany. And together with that high-ranking institution, we worked on games, on really exciting games to teach people, to train people, to get active, to prevent particular forms of crime that play, unfortunately, a serious role in Germany. On the so-called German Prevention Day, Deutscher Präventionstag in 215, I have coined the term time travel prevention games. The organizers of the German Prevention Day in 2015 has named that novel concept a key word, Schlüsselbegriff in German, as you see it here emphasized. A student of mine, Johannes Winter, has designed a digital crime prevention game. And this was, the first realization of really that innovative idea of time travel prevention games and how it may really work in practice. Apparently, time travel prevention games may be useful in other domains, such as healthcare or accident prevention, what's now our topic. The idea is always the same. Let's travel back in time. Let's change the preparation such that the undesired event does not happen for a second time. But we must be aware that human beings are very, very different. The one might succeed the next time, others may fail again. And we need to invest a lot into a didactic design and game design to make that effective. Here is a very rough structure. We describe the key idea by means of a graph. Those graphs will later on play a key role in our technology. Here, the first appearance of a graph on a slide is just, say, an illustration. Trainees get a task. There's a formulation of a task. Someone speaks to them. They get some written information. Maybe they see a video. They get cutscenes or whatsoever. And then they start the activities as you saw it in the video. Ronnie has prepared the dress with the appropriate equipment, and they start to execute their task. And as a result, sometimes they got an unintended result, an accident or anything like that. Sometimes they succeed, and that's good, and then there's a continuation. But if they fail, we offer time travel. This is a general say structure. But how to offer time travel to a trainee for the purpose of, say, making time travel, virtual time travel, intuitively possible, we have designed a time tunnel. In fact, a virtual time tunnel, as you can see it here, and I will enlarge it for your convenience. In that time tunnel, if you dive into the tunnel, you meet objects that represent what you have experienced in the past. You see a pump on the right, and you see a barrel on the left. The objects in the time tunnel are ordered according to time. And when you dive in, you come to objects you have seen a long time ago. And if you dive out, you see more recent objects. On top of the time tunnel, you see a button to the left. If you press a button to the left, then the wheel of time turns backward. You dive into the tunnel. If you press the button to the right, the wheel of time comes closer and turns to the present time, and the more recent objects appear in the tunnel. And when you select the middle button, then you select an object. And we have called that iconic representation of the past, because the objects we see there, they have some meaning to the human beings. The presentation of time points by means of objects is intuitive to the humans. They just click to the object and have a feeling where to go to in the past. It's interesting at this point, so there is no time to go into more details, that this apparently does not work when traveling into the future, because there are no iconic representations you can remember You can click and travel to because you cannot relate to things that did not yet happen. We have been asked in preparation of presentations and publications, what about time traveling to the future? This is theoretically an interesting issue. In our present work, we deal with time traveling into the past. This has been inspired by a larger number of commercial digital games. And to make it clear to those who know about this area, my personal motivation came from the Konami game, Memories of Destiny. In that game, you play a virtual character in a virtual world, and you are killed several times. And the only chance you have is to travel back in time to avoid this. And we do that here in a world where we are not killed except by our own mistakes in incorrect operations of a complex technical installation. The iconic representation of the past is the idea behind the time tunnel. The time tunnel is an implementation made by Ronny Franke at Fraunhofer EFF. And when a trainee, when traveling back, as sketched here on such a graph again, selects such an object, the trainee is sent back to the one or the other action in the past. So these arrows going back are mutually exclusive edges here in such a graph that lead from one action to the other one have execution conditions. And if there are branches, then they are normally mutually exclusive, and the one selection is preferred that refers to certain variable values set before, such as, for example, a click of the human player. Humans learn from experience. The more touching the experience, the more effective is learning and training. It makes a difference whether a trainee has experienced an accident, especially a self-induced one. This sounds, at a first glance, like the motivation of a novel pedagogical principle, right? The pedagogical idea of deliberately damaging installations and injuring the humans at their workplace. Wow, that's effective, isn't it? And therefore, it might be effective. And honestly, we do that, but we are doing so only virtually. We want the humans really to experience the accident, to experience what may happen. They should identify with all the things that take place, but we try to keep the installations and the real humans safe. Therefore, virtual time travel in a virtual reality with all the touching effects. So we need to design that. When we plan such a game and when we implement such a game, we have to think about what human players will experience, how it is fun, perhaps even addictive, and how it works didactically. And we couldn't do better than design games that are really addictive. Imagine a trainee who comes back and wants to train again because it's such a fun to train. We have no objections against trainees who deliberately cause explosions in the virtual world or other accidents and then travel back and make it better the other time. We do not try to prevent this, because if they have their fun in training, you can't do better in professional training nowadays. And even more, if they have fun and if it's worth telling, then they tell it to other potential trainees. And then they spread information about this great training and the effect it can have for real life in the industrial practice. So, but how to design? Storyboarding is, as we put it in a 2005 paper, is the organization of experience. At these old days, there were storyboarding approaches to e-learning horribly stupid. There were people writing in scientific publications that storyboarding is the organization of learning material. They were arranging subsequent PDF documents and things like that. Humans do not learn from PDF documents. Humans may read PDF documents, not too many perhaps, but they learn from own experience. And so we developed that approach in which storyboarding is really the organization of experience. The problem is that storyboarding, unforeseeable experiences of human trainees is difficult because of humans are different. There are coming trainees from the industries to our prevention center with very largely varying professional experience. They behave all differently in such a virtual world, but the virtual world should be appropriate to every one of them in different ways. They have different learning behavior. You might know about learning types, David Kolb's learning style inventory, and other quite well-based scientific approaches to learning characteristics. People are different. And so people in the virtual world who learn, who train, need to be treated individually. And they have different preferences. Some like to see an explosion. Others have other preferences. Some would like to see some cute animal, but in a factory, we have to think about cute cats running around. There are so many varying aspects to be taken into account. And all this is dynamic in dependence on context conditions. For example, if co-trainees are there, some people are shy and behave differently. Trainees have, because they are human beings, have health conditions and they are in a certain mood. And so a human trainee may behave the one day different than the other. And a digital system that is, so to speak, intelligent, adapts to those needs of human learners. And what we always have is incomplete information. When we plan, when we design our games, when we are sitting together with our colleagues, the colleagues are domain experts like Hans Holger. The colleagues are VR specialists like Ronnie. The colleagues are AI specialists like Oki. The colleagues are learning psychologists. The colleagues are educators. And when we discuss, we always are aware of the difficulties that we should know more about our human trainees and what they are going to do. But typically, we don't know. So we have to be prepared for a world in which the available information is insufficient. Fortunately, we have prior work. Oki has been publishing a book in 1996 about driving technical installations that are in a severe disturbance back to a normal regime of operation, a normal mode of operation. But if a severe disturbance occurs, you typically do not know the precise reason. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the problem. Information is highly incomplete. As a consequence, it's usually impossible at planning time, when you plan, to generate a plan that is guaranteed to work successfully. This is impossible because you will learn during the force of driving the system back into a normal mode of operation. You will learn what's in there, what the problem is. So to some extent, dynamic plan generation takes place at execution time and not hours or days or weeks or months before. Human trainees, especially those on a virtual time travel, human trainees are at least as complex as disturbed technical processes. Humans are so complex that the AI planning, the dynamic AI planning methodologies we have are appropriate to be carried over to planning what humans will experience in a more or less unforeseeable future in a dynamic virtual world. The key concepts we carry over and we adapt necessarily, so we adopt and adapt key concepts, are very roughly speaking the following. In Oki's work, a plan is a finite hierarchically structured family of directed graphs. This is a storyboard in our world. These graphs, there are graph theoretic underpinnings, are so-called pin graphs. They have ingoing nodes, in pins, and they have outgoing nodes, out pins, and those technicalities are necessary for a very correct, precise technical treatment. We don't do that here in this presentation, but we know it is necessary. We need the technological precision. So for an intuitive introduction, let's assume that we have just a family of graphs, and we'll see a few more details in a moment. Graphs have nodes and edges. Edges lead from one node to the other, say this comes first and this comes next. Sometimes there are branches. The branches have conditions. When nodes are elementary, then they have a semantics in the domain. In Oki's technical domain, they have a semantics such as heating up a generator for a certain time, heating up for a moment, or cooling down, or shutting something down, or opening a valve. Scenes have elementary meanings. Scenes in our game world have meanings such as waiting for user input, showing a cutscene, or playing an audio information, and things like that. And episodes are compound. Episodes are placeholders for more complex activities. Some of them are substituted later. So the substitution, the specification is suspended because at planning time, information is insufficient. So episodes are substituted by other graphs from the family. Therefore, the family is called a hierarchically structured family. Nodes of a higher level have may be substituted by graphs from a lower level. Even a recursion is possible. So we arrive at a very expressive planning approach. There's a publication by Daniel Kirsten some years ago, and Daniel Kirsten was able with mathematical methods and with mathematical precision to prove that this planning approach is the most powerful existing planning approach basing on graph technology, formal languages, and the like, because of the dynamics. This is published, this is cited in our proceedings paper. There is no mystery. There is enormous power in that approach, and we carry it over to the specification of experiences to come. And as said before, graph substitution may be suspended as long as possible. Data come in during human behavior, and based on prior human behavior, the next decision may be the one or the other, but we need to know about the human behavior before. So when we are planning, we are not designing a plan, a single plan. A storyboard, in a sense, determines or specifies a space of plans, a potentially infinite space of plans. And during execution, one of these plans is implemented by step unfolding. That's the basic approach we have from AI planning, thanks to Åke's earlier word. Look, here is a very simple illustration. This is a trivial one, but we want to keep all that what we are presenting here understandable. Those who are interested in more details can contact us easily. That's no problem. And there are not infinitely many, but very many things to be said more precisely. Here on the left hand, we have a high-level graph. This high-level graph says there was a preceding activity. It's not specified what that is. Then there's a training session. And if this succeeds, there are two outcoming edges. If this succeeds, there's a following activity. And if the training session does not succeed, you remember the explosion you saw in Ronnie's video. If an undesired event occurs, then we continue with time travel and come back and restart the training session again. And what takes place at the training session are several activities. And you see almost in the middle of the slide, a graph with action 1, 2, and 3. Those are first actions that can be executed immediately. And action 4 and 5 have to follow, maybe due to technological constraints. And this is designed by the domain experts with other specialists together. And when we play that graph, we play a storyboard. And we have also a technical term for that. We call that storyboard interpretation technology. A storyboard, such a family of graphs, is not compiled into a program or into a plan, but it is step by step interpreted, a distinction that is very familiar in software technology. So when we come for the first time to interpret the training session, the first graph you see here might be substituted. And the human entering that compound action now may choose training action 1 or 2 or 3 and may interact between them before going to training action 4 and 5. And then if the whole training action does not succeed, an undesired event occurs, and we are sent back by time travel. The next time, perhaps another graph is substituted. And if this happens again, another graph is substituted. And what is substituted depends on dynamic data, on behavior of the human, and on many other things. We try to make that a bit more explicit. This is time travel dynamically in dependence on dynamically changing information. Here you see the substitution. We have taken the one graph and substituted into the place of the compound node that has there been sitting before. From time travel, there are 3 edges coming into the main training session. This is independence on the human's choice to what time point to travel back. In case of another undesired event, and perhaps one more undesired event, we have to control this. And we need to bring in much more intelligence and adaptivity in this general approach. Here's only time to speak about a few of these aspects here. The crucial problem, as said, is to adapt, right? If a trainee fails repeatedly. And humans behave, as said before, very differently. It is unforeseeable why and how often a trainee fails, and how the trainee masters the time travel. Therefore, We invoke the ideas and concepts and technologies, as I said, from dynamic plan generation, from artificial intelligence. The training system, the system we have here, by means of its flexible storyboard, is an adaptive system, a system that dynamically adapts to the needs that show in course of interaction. So the unfolding of the storyboard depends. It depends on the interaction history, on what happened before, and what happened before, perhaps in cycles of interaction. It depends also on the type of a trainee's mistake. Trainees may have always the same mistake in the training session and then causing the same undesired event. There may be varying mistakes. So the system has to take this into account. And the system, naturally, it's a digital system. It's able to record everything. The system is able to record this. And the system knows about the interaction history, and the system knows about the trainee's mistakes. And there are data in the trainee profile, in the trainee model. Normally we have a model, and the instances are the profiles. The profiles are filled by concrete data about a human trainee. And from a trainee, we might know that the one or the other is here not for the first time. And we know perhaps in the profile that the trainees have varying strengths and weaknesses. And so the system adapts to those things. And there are context conditions, including, as it's written here, the time of the day. And let me illustrate that. When we are training in the afternoon and when it's already very late, then there might be a good reason to guide the trainee to a success as soon as possible. We always want trainees to be successful. And Ronnie will show you in a moment another video about this. But we want trainees to be successful. And if there's a shortage of time, the system has to adapt to these context conditions. The time of the day, like the weather, is somehow an external context condition. So when traveling back, a variety of new ideas occur, and we don't have enough space in our very short presentation here because there are many, many more things we have in our conceptualization, in our application, in our implementation. And I just want to stress one point here. Storyboarding fosters the design of innovations. We have discussed that for the first time in a paper with Johannes Winter, who made that game design for crime prevention in 2016. And here I have emphasized with a green line around just a simple idea. I just want to sketch that simple idea. And there are hundreds of that ideas. And just the one shall say, pass pro toto, tell you what's possible. When we are facing trainees who fail repeatedly, and they choose actions to travel back, like say action 3. After several failures, the system might somehow jump in and do not send the trainee back to action 3, but to a twin action, which is almost identical with action 3, but with a helpful adaptive difference. For instance, a non-player character, another avatar, passing by and talking to the trainee and giving some useful hints. Or perhaps an erroneous action becoming impossible because something is blocked and cannot be used. So twin actions are not exactly the actions. And twin actions help to make the trainee successful in the very end. Storyboard graphs are usually very small objects. You see graphs here, and all these graphs are typical real graphs. They have a fine granularity. We have lots of these graphs, so we have a very modular approach. And these storyboard graphs are ideal representations, yeah, of ideas, possibly alternative, contradictory even, possibly sometimes still immature, and ideas about didactics and game design, and teams doing the design these storyboards. They are sitting together, and they do that normally interdisciplinary. They are domain experts. They are VR experts like Ronnie. There are AI experts like Uki. There are educators. There are psychologists, and they have different opinions. And the one opinion comes into a graph, and the other one is postponed or leads to a second variation of the graph, of a version. So this process takes time, takes place over time, and distributed in space. You can send an incomplete graph to someone. You can work on a server, work on the one graph, and then change to the other to see whether the other graph perhaps tells you what you can do in the one graph, and vice versa. Ideas might be preliminary for a long time. You may even, when a system is running, experiment with varying storyboards. Just take one graph off and plug another one into the storyboard. We call that plug and play. And you may have that design bottom up. There comes one with an idea. I have a great idea. I have a great idea. Here is a little graph that explains that idea. And I have another idea. And others ask, oh, but where to bring that into our system? Let's make a top-down design and look for a corner where we can accommodate your idea. And normally both directions work at once. And you have frequent revisions and extensions. So the graphs are the knowledge base of the designers, of the domain experts, of the game specialists. And as a result, they establish a virtual world. And in that virtual world, a game. And decisive is that trainees in the very end are successful and effective. And when we show you how this works in reality, in virtual reality. Ronnie.
Okay, let's go back in the factory. Remember, some things went wrong here. We take the pump, cable, and that was the result. Now we want to take the element of time travel. So, and this is now our wheel of time. And yeah, in the time tunnel, we can see all the interactions in the past, and we can go back in time and can consider which interaction, which object was wrong. Maybe the pump, of course. And then we can go back in time, we can undo the interaction, and then we can take the right pump and again the counter the pump method. And try the process again, grounding, connection, power on, pump on, and start the process. And now everything is working properly. Finally, after that, we need to demount everything correctly. It's very fast here. And Then the task is complete, successful and safe.
Thank you for the success, Ronnie. So we like to complete every training like this. Let me see where my slides are. Here we are. So what you have seen is a sketch. Thank you for giving us that time. It was by far not enough time, but we are sure that time travel prevention games are something original, and we can demonstrate that they work, and we are willing to share the ideas and all the knowledge we have with all who are interested in. So thank you very much for your interest and for your attention, and we are ready to answer questions, and perhaps the really complex questions can be answered by email or by other talks, Zoom talks, WebEx talks, whatever comes up. And it's a great pleasure to share that. And even if we have something unique, we are willing to give that up for the benefit of all others who want to invoke related ideas, concepts, and technologies. Thank you a lot.
All right, thank you. That's really interesting stuff. That was really cool. We do have one question in the Q&A, which was a little bit earlier, so let's see, this is, do you also let the acting person do the incident analysis himself or herself before you publish the incident causes to the actor? So this was from a little bit back in the demo, but
I did not really get the question. I'm sorry for that. Maybe I can turn off my screen here. How can I do that?
Yeah, if you want to read it in the Q&A and see if you need it, maybe, and if not, maybe Reiner, who asked the question, is still around to qualify, because I think he did ask this a little bit earlier in the session. So whether the acting person gets to do the incident analysis himself or herself before you publish the incident cause. This was back at, I think, in an earlier stage of the demo.
This is very different what you with the persons who are trainees there. First, a trainee is how to say treated a bit harshly. When some undesired event happens, we just allow the trainee to travel back, but we do not interact. We leave the trainee alone in the virtual world. And when the trainee fails again, then we narrow this step by step. So the next time we prevent the trainee to go to certain places that make no sense. Nevertheless, it may happen that the trainee fails again. And then comes in the idea of twin actions and guidance. And what we really need more, we don't have that at the moment, we need more experience and evaluation with educators who tell you that this is psychologically reasonable. Because as I said, we are treating trainees harsh in the beginning. I'm not sure whether this is good, but reality is like that, right? Industrial reality.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, that's interesting, because as I was watching, wondering a little bit about, and I think you kind of just touched on it, the decisions that you made about when to intervene and when to let them just fail, and I guess, you know, how much they need to fail before you feel like you want to help them out a little bit more. And, you know, especially because failure is such a big, you know, I mean, when you fail, I mean, it explodes, right? I mean, there's no, you know, there's a really big failure. So yeah, I don't know if you thought about whether there was guidance available earlier if they wanted, or if you played around with that.
Yeah, so the simplest idea we have implemented is just counting mistakes and step by step narrowing down. And there's still a discussion, 3 mistakes are acceptable or 5, something like that. Yeah, and when we reach that end, and there we have discussions with Holger, because he is a nice person, he allows them more, and other people allows them less, and this needs evaluation actually. In the very end, they are just guided. They are just guided to the success. Try this, and they succeed. And an experience is that humans who see an explosion and later succeed like to tell others about that.
Yeah, no, I'm
It's
sure.
mistake. I damaged the whole installation, but in the very end, I succeeded.
No, absolutely. No, I totally believe that. I mean, I've seen people in things that we've done in retail customer service where they were very pleased to, they angered a customer and he yelled at them, and then the next time through they were able to do it again and keep them happy, and they were pretty excited about that. And that, it wasn't even an explosion. So I totally understand the situation. Kind of related to that, and probably this would be a future thing if it is even necessary. So you mentioned that you're counting mistakes. Are there situations where there are kind of categories of mistakes you start to get a handle on, that someone's making a similar mistake and there's something you might want to do a little bit differently? Or is that maybe down the line?
Yeah, there are categories. There are levels of severeness. I'm not sure whether this is a reasonable English word, but an explosion is worse than just some gas coming out and the people feeling ill and leaving the factory for a moment. Right. So we have different levels of that. And what we not yet are able to present is something like a taxonomy. Because if we had we don't have that, honestly. But if we had a taxonomy, we could think about how such a taxonomy allows us to drive the adaptivity. We don't have that.
Right.
But
exactly.
But you are pointing to the weakness and to the real point. But that's great to us. I'm very sure after this meeting here is over, our friends will speak about taxonomies. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. No, that's great. And I think related to that, one more thing to think about, if you haven't already, maybe you have, I guess, is, you mentioned the severity of the, of the mistake, but is an explosion always caused by a single mistake? Are there things that you might want to do down the line later to look at sort of, combinations of mistakes that would lead to the bad outcome? Like, I know when we've done things with, human interactions, we've experimented with trying to track, okay, I can say one thing and all right, it's not the greatest thing, but my manager gets a little bit angry. But then once I've said 3 different things or, said 2 things and come in late, then all of a sudden I'm going to get fired. But it wasn't any one thing, it was the accumulation of all of those things. So I don't know if that's something that you've been able to account for yet. And this, I think this is great. So there's just so many directions to go, but I'm curious about some of the future possible directions.
I suppose, Ronnie or Hans-Holger, if you contradict, please feel free to do so. I suppose for the time being, we have just the single mistake caused accidents. But there are very different mistakes for the one accident. You can also have material that just by filling causes some electricity. If you have a sack with material and you let that rush into a container, then if the sack is not grounded, you may also get an explosion. So we have varying things with the same effect. But Ronnie, maybe this is good for you, maybe Holger even more. We have to think about, we are challenged to make it even more exciting. Like reality, that is even more exciting.
Yeah, no, there's something to that, right, that in reality, sometimes it's really just one action that causes a consequence, and sometimes it's accumulation of smaller things that independently would never be sufficient, but combined are the ones that cause the reaction. And that's obviously much more to track and much more complication. And, I think trying to keep track of some internal variables that are tracking, the state of things and something like that, but it's an interesting direction. So this is fantastic. Really, tremendously enjoyed this and seeing what you're doing and the realistic feel and the way you throw people in to give them a chance to experiment and all of that. It's just been really a lot of fun for me to see. Any other questions quickly from anyone else before we go? We're kind of down to about the last several seconds before the clock strikes 3 in the afternoon here in the US. And thanks for staying up late for you. I know we're on Eastern time and not everybody is on Eastern time. So thanks for doing this through the evening in Germany.
Let me make a comment, David, please.
Sure, please.
Thank you for that wonderful event. It is so stimulating, right, to be here. And you see, we are getting stimulating questions. It is provoking us to do something substantial, not just a bit better, really substantial, to apply again next year. This is really stimulating, and thank you. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic! That's so nice of you to say, and I'm enjoying it tremendously. And we have just such a really an overwhelmingly fantastic group of people this year, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So it's great to hear, and obviously we'd love to have you back next year and in the years to come. Hopefully just get bigger and better. And thanks again
In the
to
chat,
Emma
there are
for
people
being with us.
agreeing. David, this goes to you. All people agree, do not agree with me, but direct it to you.
Okay, all right. I'll accept the agreement, and certainly on behalf of our team as well, as I think you've seen there are a lot of people involved in making this work. So it's been great to have you. So fantastic. Well, wonderful. Well, it's great to talk with you, and yeah, hopefully next year even in person in New York, and really enjoy this. So we can move to a break. So we'll let everyone take a little bit of a break. This is really just a terrific session, and stay in touch through all the various methods, and we'll see people back here as much as you can. I know it's getting later and later some places, but for those of you who can make it back at 3:30 Eastern for the final session of the day here. So, all right. Well, thanks once again, and it's great talking to all of you.
Take care.
All right, take care.
Thank
Okay.
you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.